Hey everybody, John the Other here, obviously. And today is hopefully going to be a little bit of a how-to video for anybody who doesn't feel like they're cool enough. This is a plan for you to be as cool and hip and edgy as a social justice warrior, because we know that social justice warriors are the coolest people ever. But how do you do it? Now, one of the problems that a lot of people have with trying to be as cool as an SJW is they can't quite reconcile these two particular things. One is that SJWs are clearly violent and aggressive and hateful, but also once they're social justice warriors, they see themselves as the good guy. And a lot of people have a lot of trouble with that. They can't quite reconcile seeing themselves as, you know, on the side of the angels with a suite of behavior that includes harming other people, hurling incredibly abusive insults, damaging private property, and suppressing other people's fundamental liberties. How do you see yourself as a good guy while doing all this really outwardly nasty, vicious, and violent stuff? The answer is quite simple. If you don't believe that there is such a thing as an individual, and you believe only in collective identity, then doing violence against an individual person is of no particular consequence. So if you look at human beings not as individuals, but just as token representatives of their group. So a white guy, he's just symbolic of all white guys. A black guy is just a symbolic token of all black guys. A woman is just a symbolic idea representing all women. None of these are actually individual people. So if you treat people as if they're like one stainless steel screw out of a box of 1,000 stainless steel screws, then that screw is disposable. You can screw your shelf up with it, or you can screw something to the wall, or you can strip the threads off and throw it in the garbage. It doesn't matter, because there's, you know, 1,000 more identical. There's no individual identity. So that's one of the first steps towards being as cool as a social justice warrior, is to stop believing that there is such a thing as an individual person, because it's only when there's an individual person that violence against somebody matters. If people are just symbolic of their group, then that's of no consequence. And the next thing is, there's a problem to be overcome once you stop believing in an individual, because then you don't believe in yourself anymore either. You don't have any individual identity. So what you have to do is start looking for as many different groups that you can be categorized into as possible. So if you're white, then that's like one part of your identity. If you're male, that's another part. So 2 layers. And if you're disabled, so white, male, and disabled. Well, let's start with a more popular one: female, black, disabled, and bisexual. So 1, 2, 3, 4 different elements. So instead of having a personal individual identity, what you do is you take all these different labels which represent large segments of the population, and you layer them together, and that way you, instead of having an individual identity, you have a subjective identity that depends on all these other groups. Now, you're still going to be quite miserable, but at least you can vent that misery by doing harm against other people, and it won't matter, because they're not people. They're just symbolic representations of their larger groups, and hurting one person doesn't necessarily hurt the group. This is actually a really excellent path to be as cool and edgy as a social justice warrior, and it allows you to also have an identity. The other thing is that when the social justice ideology really becomes entrenched in the mainstream, I mean at the level of government, and it starts to be implemented in domestic policies, because it is a subjugating of individual personal liberties, this won't bother you. It won't upset you that individual people are being crushed or jailed or physically harmed by social policies when the government is an SJW government, because remember, there is no such thing as an individual. There's only groups, and if it doesn't eradicate the entire group, then no problem. So that's my little how-to today for anybody who wants to be as cool and hip as a social justice warrior. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, have a lovely day.